All right, so here we sit. Several compromises have been made to try and keep this country together. We know that the Articles of Confederation didn't work. We need to be more united as a country. And the Federalists, who actually write a series of arguments in the newspaper under sometimes different names than their own, including and most famously Alexander Hamilton. If you haven't seen Hamilton, you need to. It's amazing and it's on Disney Plus. The Federalists are going to argue to support the Constitution. And the Anti-Federalists, who are largely not from the city, the farmers really didn't want to be connected to the big cities. Does that sound familiar to anyone? They're going to say, we're not specifically, so we don't really support this Constitution. So most of the states agree. They ratify the Constitution. They have votes in their colony or in their state, in their country at this point. And they agree. They say, look, we're on board. But the two biggest states didn't. And we know why. It's because of the Senate. It's because of the fact that their population will not be equally represented in this document. So what they're asking right now is they're saying, hey, agree to this document in which your people will be less represented than any other people in any other part of the country. And New York and Virginia saying no. So I'm not going to do it. There needs to be equal representation. I refuse to allow for this because not only is this going to impact the Senate, this is also going to impact the Electoral College. And this is unfair. But with the pushing and prodding of the Federalists and in writing the Federalist paper, they both end up agreeing. Virginia first, and then Washington, and then New York, both end up agreeing to ratify the Constitution, giving the Constitution not only enough states, but now the two biggest states, where all the money is. Let's face it, the biggest states, the business states, your New York, and at this point, Virginia, these are the states that support everyone else. I mean, to this day, we're going to find out later on that the bigger states in the United States pay more into the system and give less representation than the smaller states. And this was the case back then as well. So we end up getting these last two states to agree. And now the Constitution begins. Another sticking point, and let me add this, was the fact that at first there was no Bill of Rights. So there had to be an agreement that says we will now agree to make the Bill of Rights. Now, this is interesting because it was a handshake agreement, right? It wasn't written in stone. It wasn't, there must be a Bill of Rights for me to vote on this. It's, I'm going to vote on this and I'm going to trust you to add a Bill of Rights, which didn't necessarily have to be done, because once you vote yes to ratify the Constitution, the government could have said, ha, 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 I tricked you, right? I'm not going to do a Bill of Rights. But they honored the handshake agreement, which is a tradition in our country. There are these norms of our country, the way that things just work. And there's been a certain level of agreement and working together that, hey, look, we said we're going to do it, so we're going to do it. That has been a huge part of the basis of the success of our country. Some would argue that that is being broken today. Okay. But a Bill of Rights was eventually added. 2 years later, the first 10 rights to our Constitution were added, and we're going to talk about that next chapter.